So just first of all, would you be able to tell me what the Speaker of the House is and what the role entails?
First of all, I'm the Member of Parliament for Chorley.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's my first job. The other job is I'm Speaker of the House of Commons. And basically, it's a bit like being a chief executive of a company, but also it's like being a referee in a football game. And some might say at times a rugby game when it gets a bit more tasty. So the job of me is to ensure the House can scrutinise the government business, making sure that the opposition is there. But what I really do look after is all the MPs, the backbench MPs that holds the government to account. And of course, people always say, well, is that just Prime Minister's questions? No, absolutely not. It's every day we do questions, we do debates. I choose which are the amendments for debates. And that's the role of Speaker, a part of the role. The other role is the Chief Exec, Chairman of a company. And that's could be discussing with the trade unions about a pay rise with 3,000 direct employees in the House of Commons, health and safety, security, which is a massive issue. If there's one thing that keeps me awake at night, it's the worry about security of MPs. So all of that comes in my remit, visiting heads of state, things, the tragedy of Her Majesty dying, being on duty for 2 weeks, all these many things that you don't expect all come together and all come under the remit of the Speaker of the House of Commons.
Fantastic. So you began your career in politics in 1980 when you ran for Councillor of Adlington, and you were the youngest ever councillor elected to Chorley. You very much followed in your father, Lord Hoyle's footsteps, who became an MP in 1974. Was it his experience that influenced your decision to join politics?
Yes and no in a sense, because I'd seen him fight for a seat. He was the candidate for the old Clitheroe constituency, which is now known as Ribble Valley. He fought that, but Ribble Valley fought back much harder, the Clitheroe constituency. He didn't win. So he waited to get another seat, which was 1974. So I've been involved at a very, very young age, seeing what it's like to be a candidate, trying to stand for Parliament, and obviously losing as well. And then to see him win is, obviously inspiring to see all that he'd been fighting for. Suddenly he was a Member of Parliament. So I saw that come along and realised, this is about supporting people, this is about helping people, this is about making a difference. And that's why I went on to the council. So in that sense, yes, I'd seen what he'd done, but I never thought about Parliament. I thought about Chorley Borough Council, because on the council, I still love it. I love this town hall. I love Chorley. The thing is, when you're on the council, you can do something instantly. Being a Member of Parliament, it takes a lot longer to deliver. So I did, in a sense, I came on 1980, right through to the election. 1998, I left the council here. 18 years, and as I say, I went to Parliament in 97. So the rest just rolled on. But it was watching my father, seeing what he did. Yes, that was the seed of thought for the council here first, and it was other people around the council who persuaded me to stand and run for Parliament.
So throughout your 4 decades in politics, there have been many changes to procedure, including televising and broadcasting Prime Minister's questions. What would you say has changed the most since you began your career in politics?
I think the biggest change while I've been there, of course, the change we had was a pandemic. Massive. Who would have thought that people said Parliament's going to close? Well, that would have given the government a free rein to do what it wanted. There would have been nobody holding to account. So it's what could I do to ensure the government was held to account? And the fact that Parliament was meeting remotely, what a change that was. Really different. The fact is that suddenly Parliament couldn't sit, and there was about 10 of us in the chamber, if that. And you think there's not even standing room, you could have 500, 600 people coming into the chamber. And the fact that we had so few people, and within Parliament, in a day, something like 9,000 people come into Parliament, suddenly we were operating at 350 people. No visitors, no nothing. So it really did shrink it down. That was the strangest time for me. But of course, we were able to scrutinise the government. That's what mattered. And then, of course, things started to ease. And we had voting. And we had this ridiculous idea that you go right round the building to go and vote. That wasn't acceptable. And I said, why can't we have touch voting? So you have a parliamentary pass, you touch it, you go in after you vote. It's registered straight away. You still do it in the voting lobbies, but it was instant. So we could speed up the whole of voting. and have retained it. It was so good, so effective, and we could see at any one time how many people had voted and where the vote was going. And you just knew you had this new way of measuring votes, getting them through quickly, not having to wait the whole time again. It was so effective because in the end it was one person you gave your name to and walked through. That took forever. This way we've got 4 terminals and 4 people are voting in each lobby at any one time. Totally changes the voting system and the speed of the voting system. Obviously it doesn't alter the outcome of what people want to vote, but it was that effectiveness. And I think that was a great thing that we brought in and made a real difference. And I suppose the other one was President Zelensky. Nobody has ever spoken to Parliament. And the fact that we'd had the pandemic, had television screen, and we beamed him into the House of Commons, and he was speaking live in the House of Commons chamber. Never happened before. That also is amazing. So we've really made some real differences. And hopefully, like I said, the voting system will be there now forever.
Fantastic. So as Speaker, you need to remain neutral. How do you remain neutral while still advocating for your constituents here in Charlotte?
Well, that's why I'm here tonight. I'm holding my surgery. People come to me and they'll come with the problems and issues, and of course I'll take that on board. I've also got the ultimate vote because I've got the casting vote. So we don't lose that. The other thing is that people say, well, can you still advocate for Charlie? Of course I can. Why did the A&E open for 12 hours a day? Because I made sure it did. I can work behind the scenes. I call the Secretary of State. If I want to see a Prime Minister, I don't go to a Prime Minister. The Prime Minister comes to my office and will be a major announcement on Monday. We're going to make this big announcement about this new money that's coming into Charlie. That only happened because I'm the Speaker. Yeah. And that's the difference
so
I can make.
It's a benefit really, isn't it? So you
Absolutely.
Get that sort of backstage pass.
You do indeed. Yeah. And behind the scenes I can pull the strings I need to pull to deliver for Charlie. The station, we're having the disability access put in at the moment. That's all done because I go and see the Secretary of State. So I make things happen. We don't do it as loud as I used to. We just do it quietly.
Yeah. So do you find it difficult remaining neutral? Because it is your role to be invisible in a way, but you're also one of the most visible people in British politics. Is it hard to balance? Is it a hard balance to navigate, or is it a case of leaving your opinions and your views outside of the chamber and just getting on with your role as a Speaker?
Well, I was the Mayor of Chorley. Yeah. And being the Mayor of Chorley is exactly the same. Yeah. You're in the chair, you don't pass comment, you listen, and you got the casting vote. And that's exactly. I'd had a good grounding, an apprenticeship of being the Mayor, in a sense that prepared me ready to become the Speaker. And that's what it's about. Don't accept the rules. If you can't accept the rules, don't do the job. So if you accept the rules, get on with doing the job. And that's what I tried to do. And hopefully people say, he is independent, he is neutral, he plays a straight bat right down the middle. And that's what it's about. As I say, I love coming home. I come home at weekends. People say, we'll never see him now as Speaker. Oh, yes, you do. Nothing's changed. I'm back here. I'm representing people. I'm meeting people. I'll be in town tomorrow. I'll be there with the light switch on. You name it. I'm here in Chorley.
Fantastic. There's always been people that speak out against Parliament and the decisions that are made. However, in recent years, we have seen an increase in attacks on MPs and tragically the death of Jo Cox and others like her. While carrying out duties as members of Parliament. So just touching back to what you said about the security and the safety of MPs, do you feel that it's deterring people from wanting to join politics?
I think there's two things. One thing we've got to do is make sure it doesn't deter people. What we've also got to do is try and ensure we put the best safety around them, try and ensure that they're safe with the measures that we bring in, the security measures that we bring in, is to protect MPs. And hopefully that will reassure people to come forward. And of course it's been difficult. Jo Cox, a rising star, a new MP with a great future. In the same way, David Amis, an old stalwart of Parliament, a friend to everybody, tragically murdered carrying out their duties. Who would have thought that people who were trying to do the best by people would be murdered? And that's what the tragedy is. Because the problem is that whether it's some white extremist or a terrorist group, the one thing we do know is they cannot win. And what they have done, that we mustn't forget what they did, because they've ensured that we united for democracy. We believe in democracy. These people don't believe in our values. They don't believe in the way that we are accountable. They think that intimidation through threat and death is the way that you destroy democracy. They will never win. We'll never allow them to win. But we'll also never forget Joe Cox and Sir David Amess.
Some people argue that it's not been a great few years for Parliament. We've had 2 Prime Ministers charged by police over breaking of lockdown regulations, accusations of bullying, sexual harassment and Partygate. Most recently we've had the Cohen inquiry, in which the language used between MPs and the level of debate is something that we've never seen before. Would you say that the level of political discourse is declining within UK politics? And if so, do you feel that it's leading to the public losing faith in Parliament?
I think there's a lot there to look at. Look, let's try and do it in a, just slice it down a little bit. If you look at the language that was used, that was officials and ministers, that was not in Parliament. That was in Downing Street and in ministerial buildings. So that's over there. That's not my responsibility. I expect better of people, but I've no jurisdiction of what goes on there. And of course, the pandemic did stretch people in all ways, and that's why there has to be an inquiry. And it's right that we find out what happened in that inquiry, and we need to continue with that. That's so important. The fact that 2 Prime Ministers paid a fine, well, they're answerable to themselves. That's the ministerial code. That's not for Parliament. What I would say is that Parliament showed its strength when it did the inquiry into a Prime Minister that then resigned. So that should have given assurance to the public that the strength of Parliament is there, that he, by his own peers, because he's a member of Parliament, he was the one, they did the inquiry, and the majority of MPs on that inquiry was his own party. So that proves that the Parliament has got strength, it has got teeth, and it shows it's not frightened. It shows absolutely it's not frightened of whoever it is, they will investigate. So I think that's good. And you're right, you touched on people come forward about bullying, sexual exploitation. One time they couldn't bring it forward because there was nowhere to do that. And that's what we have done. We've given people a route in which to come forward, to allow them to speak, to allow them to go to the independent commissioner. So we have, a system that deals with it. We've also got the police. And what I would say is that never used to happen. It was buried, covered over, no longer. We're open, and it's open to people, and that's why people can now come forward, because we've put a system in there that reassures people that they can absolutely bring those complaints forward.
Fantastic. And finally, what's been your biggest achievement throughout your political career other than becoming Speaker of the House?
I think becoming the MP for Chorley.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's got to be. You look at everything, my life will go mad, sure that it should have been when you got married. But no, putting that to one side, I've got to say, I think the greatest moment, don't get me wrong, was when I was elected in 1997. What a night that was. This country changed. It was a whole new beginning, wasn't it? And there was excitement right across the country. So I've got to say, just being part of that was fantastic. Representing Chorley all this time has always been something I'm so proud of. My hometown, not many MPs can say that. Nobody, I can claim that. And I always say, well, I've got the best constituency to represent. And of course, don't get me wrong, it is a fantastic job being Speaker. 158 Speaker. The first time somebody, a Lancashire MP's ended up being the Speaker. That's the difference. And I think it's so important. And we're certainly putting that Lancashire voice in Westminster all the way from Chorley.